Hey guys, welcome back to architutors. In this video I will walk you through how to make spiral staircase in SketchUp and how to render it with Vray. I'll be using the Vray 4.2 version, that is the Vray Next for SketchUp. Now to begin, I'm going to import a Cad file that is basically a drawing for staircase. So to import the file, go to File, click on Import, either double click on it or select it and click on Import. So that way you can import a Cad file. And in this Cad file I have these two sections for the reference and the plan for different levels. And I'm going to delete this component first and then go to the top view and using the circle tool make a circle right here so I can snap to the center point of this circle and create this circle, and I'm going to edit the segments for this circle. While I have the outline or the edge selected of this circle, right click on it and go to Entity Information, and here I'm going to fill 50 segments for this and click Enter. And go to the Offset tool. Either you can click on this Offset tool from here from the toolbars, or you can use the shortcut and offset this circle to this point. And again I'm going to change the segments for this circle. Right click on the outer edge, go to Entity Information, and in here I'll set its segments as 100 and press Enter. We need the circle face to basically make the steps of the stair, and let's go ahead and make a step. And to do that I'll create a line starting from the center point of this smaller circle and follow this line up till here and make another line aligning it to the edge on the CAD drawing. So now we have this face that will be our step, or one single step for this staircase. So what I'm going to do is basically make a copy of this face. Go to the Move tool and hit the Control key to make the copy of this face. And I want to make the copy on the Z axis. So I'll set it at around an inch so that this face is just about over the ground surface. And I'm going to convert this into a group. So having it selected, right click and click on Make Group. And in this group I'm going to extrude this first to this ground level and over about 2 inches, so that total height of this step is around 3 inches. And then go to the Rotate tool and make a copy of this, snapping to the middle point of the circle to this edge, and hit the Control key to make the copy onto the very next step. And now I'm going to move this on the Z axis about 7 inches so that our riser comes out to be 7 inches in this staircase. And similar way we can make more copies of this. Just select all these steps and use the Rotate tool, snap it to the center point, hit the Control key, now to move this on the Z axis, use the Move tool, snap it to the other step, and from here move this further to 7 inches. And now we can select 4 steps at once to make more copies. So if my starting point is this edge, I can cover 4 of those steps from the plan and snapping it to this edge to make another 4 copies. Move this on the Z axis to align with the other steps and make this difference of the riser for 7 inches. Now you see some steps in this drawing are not actually made because it might be cutting from that level that is mentioned on the drawing. So we need to make all those steps, or what I'm going to do is basically hide this drawing. So select it and right click on hide, and on this face that we made we already have this face of this step. So what I'm going to do is basically make multiple copies of this around this face. So use the rotate tool and make copies by rotation. Enter 12 with the star and press enter. This is how you can make multiple copies at once, and these lines will be our reference for copying more of these steps. So I'm going to select all these steps now. Use the rotate tool, hit the control key to make the copies, and it will be easier to make multiple copies of this now that we have all these reference lines. So I'm going to snap it to this edge and move this on the z-axis to align it with the other step, and raise it by 7 inches again for the riser. And in this staircase we need 18 steps, so if I select all of these and go to default tray, we can see that we have made 16 so far. There are 16 solid groups selected. I'm going to close this, and now we need just 2 more extra steps, and for that I'll use these 2 steps at the top and make copy of them. So again use rotate and copy. Snap it with the other step and raise it for the riser difference 7 inches and enter. So this is how you can make all these steps and copy them at all their different levels for the staircase. And what I'm going to do is basically select all of these steps and put them into one single group. So right click and click on make group. And now let's unhide the CAD drawing. And this circle at the center, this smaller circle, is going to be our pillar, or basically a column. So I'm going to make a group of this and basically extrude it right to the top face of this step, and extrude it even more by 1 feet. Okay, now we are left to make the railing for this staircase, and before I do that, first I'm going to raise this step by 4 inches, and let's also delete this circular face. Hit delete, and I'm going to hide this pillar at the center for now, and make another circle following the same edges from the drawing, and make an offset for this to right here, and let's also add its segments. Let's set it at 50. And as you see, there's some difference between these lines, so we can shorten the radius for this circle, or basically offset this and erase the outer face, and make another offset to the outer edge. So this face is all we need. We can delete everything else, and basically extend these lines so that we have this division for one step. and erase the other part of this face. And now we have this segment, or basically a face that will work as a segment for the railing. So if I just extrude this using the push and pull tool, I'll extrude this by 3 feet and hide the drawing for now and erase these extra edges. So basically we don't want to have these extra edges, we just want this solid group with clean faces. And select all of these faces of this segment, right click on this, and this time make a component of this. So click on make component. I'll leave the details as default and click on create. So why I made this into a component, you'll find out later. Now unhide everything. I'll keep this pillar hidden. What I want to do is basically move this segment along this first step. So I'll do that by rotation. Go to the rotate tool and snap it to the center of this circle, referring to the first edge to here. And again what I'll do is basically make copies of this segment, of this component rather, using the rotate tool, snapping it to the center of this circle. Hit Ctrl to make copy, and in here also move this on the z-axis by 7 inches. And now select these two components and make more copies. So that way we need these components along all these different steps on this staircase. And use the move tool to move this on the z-axis and further by 7 inches and enter. And now select these 4 components. Use the rotation tool, make copy, and move on the z-axis and further up by 7 inches. Okay, now that we have finished copying all these segments for the railing, it's time that we make more changes to them. So I'll just go to this component and select this edge and use the move tool to basically move this up by 7 inches so that it aligns perfectly on this edge. And the very same way, do this for this top edge. Select this edge and move this on the z-axis and snap onto the edge of the another component. And as you see, this is not perfect yet, and to make it better, what we need to do is basically select all of these segments at once. And to do that, I'll first just hide these steps and select all of these segments and make a group out of them. And now move this, or rather rotate, by the distance of 1 step. And onto this group, go ahead and select the very first segment, make the rotate copy of this, move this downwards on the z-axis by 7 inches, and now basically trim this part at the bottom. And to do that, first, since all of these are components, I'll right click on it and make it unique. So click on make unique, and what it basically does is I can make any changes to this single component and it will not change the other. Going into this component, let's make a rectangle, extrude this, and basically what I want to do is intersect all these geometry. So right click, go to intersect faces with model. Now we can remove these extra faces. First the box, and now these segments. That's it. Now we can unhide everything. And let's also remove this extra segment at the top. Before starting the rendering process, at last all we had to add is basically one railing over this. So I'll go into this component, select this curve from the outside and make a copy of this. So use the move tool and hit Ctrl to make the copy of this in the Z axis, and make the copy around about 4 or 4.5 inches. What I want to do is basically turn these lines, these curves into tubes, and to do that select this curve, and there's an option in GHS power bar that you can use, that is to convert selected lines into tubes. So click on this option. I'll set the diameter as 2 inches and click OK. So that is an easy way to make these tubes or convert the curves into tubes, and I'll do the same for this remaining component. Make the copy of this curve, hit Ctrl, make the copy on Z axis to 4.5 inches and click on this option. Set the diameter as 2 and click OK. So this is how you can create a staircase in SketchUp. Now let's start with the rendering part, and for that I'll remove this plan first, hit delete, and let's move all of this to origin point. So use the move tool, I'll snap it from here and move this to origin. To begin the rendering process by V-Ray, what I'll do basically add some colors or textures to these objects. So go and click on V-Ray options, and first of all I'm going to delete all these default materials that are already there. So select them and hit delete. Now that we have no more default materials in this file, we can add on our own materials. So click on this arrow and go to materials, and for this pillar I'll basically apply a aluminium texture to this. So go on to metal and drag this aluminium polished material onto the list of materials. Right click and click on apply to selection. So that way you can apply the texture or the material to any of the objects from the SketchUp scene. Similar way, select these steps, and for these let's go on to stone, and let's apply the marble texture on this. Right click on this texture and click on apply to selection. And also basically add the proportions, and to do that we can go to the tray and click on edit, and let's change it to 2 feet by 2 feet. Okay, that's good. Close the bucket for now. For these tubes or the railings, I want something metallic, basically like copper, so go to metal and I'll select copper polished. So drag and drop this material to the list, right click and click on add to selection. And since this is a component, it has applied everywhere on that segment except for this component. So select this, right click and apply. And for these faces of the railing part, I only want to apply white color to this. So go to bucket and from here I'll use basically a color from SketchUp library. This is fine. And apply. And apply the same to this component. Call it white and enter. And onto this white color that is now the part of this list, what I want to do is basically add some reflection onto this. So go to reflection and here change the color of reflection. I'll keep it light gray so it has more reflection, and close this. You can also change the reflection color from here. I think this is perfect. So that's it for the materials. And now let's create a scene for the render. So I'll minimize the V-Ray and set a scene. I think this is good. Click on View, Animation and add scene. And for this scene and the staircase, what I want is basically have a white background. I want to remove all the sky in the render. So if I render it right now as default, click on the render key. You see in this render there's basically this blue sky and this gray background. So I want to remove both of these, and to do that let's close this and add an infinite plane from here. I'm going to add it to this origin point. Hit escape. And now if I go back to the scene and try and render this, you see there's this infinite plane with a white color, and now all we have to do is basically remove the sky and modify the settings for the render. So I'll close this for now. Go to Vray Settings. And the first thing I'm going to do in these settings is basically go to Render Output and enable the Save Frame. So that only this part, or rather I'll actually change it. Let's change this aspect ratio to custom and change the image height and width by 800 by 800 and click enter and zoom in and update the scene by going to scene 1, right click on it and click on update. Basically the proportions are set for our render, so if I click on render, you see only that part from the scene gets rendered, and you see strong shadows right now as the default settings. We'll change it, so click on stop and close this for now and go to environment, and here I'm going to set the background color as white. Close this and also disable this texture slot. So make sure that you disable this if you want to remove the sky, and click on this arrow for more settings. And here the major part that we have to enable is the volumetric environment. So enable this, and from the settings You can change the visibility range to 6000 or maybe 5000. And the atmospheric height I'll set at 50,000. And one very important part from here is to disable the effect background. So disable this, and that's all the changes you need to make in volumetric environment. And at last from here also turn the denoiser on. For the final render you can change the quality to high or perhaps very high. I'll have the medium selected for now, and on the render output you can increase the image height and width. I'll probably increase it to 1200 by 1200, and also on the environment change the multiplier of the background color to 50. Now if I try and render this, it will come really good when it's finished. For now I'll just stop this. And let's make a couple of more changes on these rendering settings. I'll go to Global Illumination, and here make sure you have brute force on the primary rays and light cache on the secondary selected. And on the light cache I'll change the subdivisions to 2000. And you can increase the sample size to 0.04 or 0.05. I'll keep it to 0.03, otherwise it'll take more time to render, but of course that'll give you a good quality. And that's all the changes you need to make in the Vray rendering settings to have a good render with the white background. I'll try and render this from this perspective, and to do that let's just click on render. So this is one way you can go and make spiral staircase in SketchUp and render this using Vray Next. And you can play with more settings in the Vray rendering settings. Also let us know all the suggestions you have in the comment section below. And make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit on the bell icon for all the latest updates. Thank you.